Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome on into Inside the Huddle once again for another Saturday night, the eve before the Super Bowl. Man, we're in for a good one tomorrow. I'm your host, Lucas Hill. Thank you all for joining in wherever you're watching us. If you're watching us over on Instagram, make sure that you are dropping a comment in the comments section below. Also, make sure that you give us a follow at Lucas_Hill17. If you're watching us on X, make sure that you give us a follow at Lucas_Hill23. Also, give our boy Scout a follow too at Southern SP. He's in a couple of spaces right now from the last time I heard from him. But guys, we have a lot to talk about today. We have a massive amount to talk about. Let's just get to it. First of all, we got to talk about the 2025 NFL Draft. We talked about the Super Bowl yesterday. I promise we did. If you didn't, go ahead and check that out. It's on X. But we literally have to have a real conversation about what we're about to see. Once all is said and done, once the NFL season is over with, we got to go back and we got to start looking back at college football. In about less than 50 days, we'll have the UFL season. Myself and Scout will be getting into a lot of UFL talk over the next several weeks, previewing around every team. We're kind of already starting, kind of setting everything up, but at the same time, we're still kind of in the midst of looking for guests as well. But I am very, very proud of the progress we have made. But no, we still have a lot to work on. If we want to get real about the NFL draft, we have to really start taking this seriously with what this class is looking like. And we can agree to disagree on certain topics, but I'm telling you, this quarterback class reminds me so much of 2007's quarterback class. In 2007, there were only two superstars that you could have had. It was Brady Quinn, and it was Jamarcus Russell. Those were the only two in that class that anybody really wanted. Everybody else was just a pick 'em. They weren't top-tier rated quarterbacks. And if you go back and look at mock drafts, there's a lot of analysts that'll say the same thing. You know, there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to repeat exactly what I say. There are not a lot of top-tier prospects at the quarterback position in this draft. I do not believe it. I just don't. And we can disagree. Once again, I just do not see anywhere else where you could legitimately get a top 10 quarterback in the NFL in this draft. Now, 2007, the only real decent quarterback you could say that had any sort of success to me was probably Trent Edwards, who ended up being a third-round draft pick. Kevin Cobb was another one, I would say. Tyler Thigpen was an interesting one. But you never really had that must-have prospect other than your first-round draft picks. That's really about it. And we could say what we want about certain quarterbacks, especially when you look at a guy like what is his name? We could say the same thing for a guy like Jalen Milroe. But if you look at 2007, the system quarterbacks were a thing. 07 may not have had the prototypical quarterbacks that you're seeing now with more mobile ability, more of a complete package, guys that are able to throw as well as scramble, guys that you see like a modern day Russell Wilson, like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Josh Allen, guys like that. That is what most NFL GMs are looking for in an NFL quarterback. This year is just so weak. This is what it's come down to. You've got two surefire top 5 picks in Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Now, I've heard a lot of rumors. He was talking at the Senior Bowl a couple of weeks ago in Dallas, saying that he is ready to go play Dallas twice a year. So that could be a hint that he might have already known that he's not going to be the number 1 overall pick. He's going to go to New York, which I thought would be a perfect fit for him. And he's already said, if he's not the number 1 overall pick, it's not going to bother him. It's about finding the right system that fits him. And that is what's going to benefit him at the end of the day. And I think with Shedeur in New York, I think it's a match made in heaven. Believe it or not, look at the amount of talent that he's going to be surrounded with. I mean, you're talking about you pairing him with a Malik Neighbors. If you get a healthy offensive line with Evan Neal and Andrew Thomas, if you can address the injuries that are on the defensive side of the ball, you have a legitimate case that this is a New York team that I think next year, if you can get Sanders, that's a 6, 7, 8 win team. And I think the biggest improvement that you're going to see is on the offensive side of the ball with a quarterback that you can rely on. You're not going to see New York do the same BS that they did a couple years ago and just select a random freaking quarterback. They're not going to do what they did and go get jail. I'm telling you, a quarterback has to be their primary need in 2025. If not, then he'll probably end up in Cleveland. And then from then on, you'll probably get Travis Hunter in New York, and you'll have Drew Lock throwing him the football again. And if that's the case, do the Giants tank to go get a quarterback in 2026? It certainly isn't out of the question. But I do think that this 25 class, you're getting 2 guys that you have a crack at in Shedeur and Cam Ward. Both of which I've seen mock drafts have them at 1 and 2 in the NFL draft. But I don't know if that's going to end up being the case. If it does, then I am very, very shocked that it will. But at the end of the day, I mean, you got to find the right system that is perfect for one another. And if you can't do that, then you're screwed. Then you're going to put your franchise in a big-time hole. So I do have one question, though. Do you think that the match made with Shedeur and Brian Dable would be good? I don't know. I'll say this. He's been around the game for a very long time. Been a Patriot with Bill Belichick whenever he was a defensive assistant and future quarterbacks coach and wide receivers coach. So he's been in the league for a while. Was with Buffalo for a little while with the beginning of the Josh Allen era. And so I do believe that there is a lot that is going to occur in the next 5 or so weeks leading up to the NFL Combine, which, by the way, dates for that one will be the end of this month, which will be Thursday, February 27th, all the way up until Sunday, March 2nd. So it'll be a 4-day thing. So we're literally 2.5 weeks away from the Combine. I'm about to look at some of the NFL Combine invites. And see who's going to participate in them. I do expect Elick Ailmaner to participate in the Combine. I just know he didn't participate in Senior Bowl. I don't think he's going to go through all the drills, but I do think that he could potentially be a guy that participates in the 40. I'll tell you what, Elick Ailmaner probably has the biggest upside going in. I think he's got big game. I think he's got big play potential as a receiver. I think that a guy like that is going to prove a lot of doubters wrong. And being in a bad system without a quarterback at Stanford is going to really help him elevate his game at the next level. And the reason why people don't know about him is because of how bad Stanford was. Elick Ailmaner put himself on the map against Colorado. I mean, the one-handed kick or the unbelievable moss that he had going up against Travis Hunter was incredible. I thought it was really amazing what he had been able to do over the course of the last 2 years, being a fairly decent receiver. One that I think that could definitely elevate his draft stock over the next year or so. But I think this year he just could not find consistency. But I will say, you take a chance on him, you're getting one of the best receivers in the draft. Elick Ailmaner, when you look at his draft profile, the guy is a top 10 receiver in the 2025 NFL draft. 6'2", 210 pounds. The guy, to me, should be I think he performed a lot better than when you look at guys like Isaiah Bond. I think he's got more intangibles than a guy like Isaiah Bond, who's got speed, or a Matthew Golden, of that matter. I think he's got big play capability better than Luther Burden, because Luther Burden went away in big games. He didn't show up in those games. Elick Ailmaner has. And Luther Burden got the benefit of having a decent quarterback in Brady Cook. But this year was just completely different for Luther Burden. You just didn't see him break out, have one of those signature breakout games that we're used to seeing. I mean, against Alabama, 3 receptions for 3 yards. Against Arkansas, 1 reception, 11 yards. Oklahoma didn't do bad, 5 receptions, 55 yards. But there was no – Auburn, 6 for 49, 5 for 59 against UMass. There was no real game that you could really consider Luther Burden to play in that he could break out during that time. Tatoria McMillan, to me, is going to be wide receiver 1 in this year's draft. There's no doubt in my mind of how insane of an athlete this kid is. 6'5", 212 pounds, just has so much in his arsenal that he can do. I mean, he's been doing things that you hadn't thought of. You know, he's so fluid in his pass, in his routes. The guy can excel in finding the softs. Let me just read you some of the scouting report that I've gotten from him. He's got remarkable positional versatility, thriving most as an X and power slot with fluid movement skills rare for his frame size. Displays advanced route running prowess with diverse tree, particularly excelling on whip routes, crossers, and in cuts across the middle. So he can get out of his break, and once he turns it upfield, he's easily able to get first rounds. He doesn't go down after initial contact, too. Demonstrates elite ball tracking ability and timing on deep throws, consistently winning contested catches with excellent body control. That's what you're going to need. Like I mentioned, if you throw up a jump ball to him, he's going to come down with it inbounds. Displays advanced route running prowess with diverse tree, particularly excelling or shows surprising fluidity and change of direction skills for his size, creating separation through technique rather than pure athleticism. Possesses natural hands and an expansive catch radius, making him a reliable target at all 3 levels of the field. Uses his size advantage effectively in the red zone, especially on this back shoulder phase that you're going to get him on, and displays his improved YAC ability with good vision and enough strength to break arm tackles. The only thing I will say is his speed. He doesn't have that top end speed that you want to get the breakaway. But I will say Tatoria McMillan is a unique asset as a pass catcher. But I will say this as well. You could probably put another guy above him, and you could put another DB, an NFL type DB on him. And I promise you, in one-on-one situations, they're gonna get beat every single time because of his big play capability and what he's been able to do whenever he has a one-on-one situation or whenever he's lined up in a zone coverage situation, just being able to find these soft off spots so that he can make plays in the middle of the field. And there's no doubt why he's one of the best receivers in the draft. I think he puts on another 5 pounds. If he can be physical and run blocking, I think you've got a legit prospect in Tatoria McMillan that can really do damage at the wide receiver position. I think that he could potentially be a top 15 pick. Outside of that, at the most, he'll be a top 20 pick. I'm trying to find a comparison of what he's related to. They've compared him to either a guy like Drake London or T. Higgins. A bold take that people had him on was I thought people had him as like a Randy Moss type guy, but Moss was, I think, a couple inches shorter and much, much faster than Tatoria McMillan. But the guy's going to be a top receiver in this year's draft, and I think he's got a big upside to him at the end of the day. Kansas's quarterback Jalen Daniels is undergoing yet again another surgery. They said it was minor. He's going to be limited in spring practice, but for how long? So if you don't remember Jalen Daniels was the guy that for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the 2022 season had an opportunity to potentially win the Heisman Trophy. And I think because of the injuries that he's had to sustain over the last 2 or 3 years, he has struggled tremendously with being a consistent quarterback and being able to stay on the field. And look, Jim Zabrowski, who's going to be the new quarterbacks coach and the offensive coordinator. He's going through 3 offensive coordinators because he had Andy Koltnicky, who was in the Lance Leipold offense, who was with Lance Leipold 2 years ago. He goes. You bring in another offensive coordinator in Jeff Grimes, who is now the OC at Wisconsin. Now you bring in another in-house guy, which I think was a good move. I think bringing in a guy like Jim Zabrowski, who has been with the team for a while, I think that he is perfect for the job. He's definitely got one that, look, he's been around Jalen Daniels since 2021. So he's been there all 4 years that he's been in Lawrence, Kansas. And look, if I'm Kansas, I am revolving this offense around him. If it is not, then it is going to be a problem. The problem with Kansas, though, is that you're losing a lot of depth at the DB position. You're losing Kobe Bryant, which, by the way, Kobe Bryant could be within the first 2 rounds getting picked. It's a shame he won't be a first-round pick, but I think he's one of the best DBs in this draft class. That doesn't get talked about because he plays in the Big 12. But the guy's a shutdown corner. And people need to understand how incredible he is and how unbelievable this dude's ceiling can be. And look, people can hate on a guy like that because, oh, he plays in the Big 12. Oh, he doesn't play actual competition. No. Kobe Bryant is probably the most NFL-ready quarterback that hasn't gotten talked about at all throughout this cycle. You need to include him on your draft board. The guy is Detroit would love to have another guy like that. I would say Cleveland could be a good fit for him. I'd say the Jets as well. They need a DB. They certainly would love to have another guy like that to pair alongside Sauce Gardner. So it's all about who are you going to get. I'll tell you this, too. If the Jets want to pull the trigger and go get a wide receiver with – obviously, everybody knows about Davante Adams' situation with the Jets. I don't know if he's going to stay in New York. I think he could be open to joining another team. But I will say this. If Davante Adams were to go to another team, you could definitely pull the trigger and go get a guy like Tatoria McMillan. Definitely is something that people need to consider. Let's continue on with some more updates around college football. The way too early All-American team got released. And it's odd to me. It's a bit of an odd stretch from what ESPN put together, but I do feel like there's a lot of guys that are not on this list. You've got Cade Klubnik on here as your first team offensive for your quarterback position, which honestly I'm fine with. I mean, guy was unbelievable last year. I mean, just went under the radar and just decided to throw for 36 touchdowns and 3,600 passing yards. 4,000 yards of total offense by himself. All of his top receivers are returning. He's poised to potentially have a Heisman Trophy-like season, which I think he's going to get. I definitely think that it would not surprise me. That opening game against LSU is going to decide who wins the Heisman Trophy, whether it be Garrett Nussmeier or whether it be Cade Klubnik. Jeremiah Love is also on there. I think Katron Allen needs to be on there above him. Sorry. Arch Manning, second team. Man. Nick Singleton. Dude. double trouble needs to be on this list instead of Jeremiah Love. Look, Jeremiah Love had a pretty decent season last year. Look, ran for over 1,000 yards and 17 touchdowns. But is he going to be healthy going into next year? That is the question that needs to be on a lot of people's mind. He can break out. He can break out. Make no mistake about that in big time games. But can he carry the load on a consistent basis? Can he go 15, 20 carries with many different, with a new quarterback in CJ Carr? Because they're going to have to rely on him in situations like that with a young quarterback. But we'll see. Jeremiah Smith, definitely wouldn't be surprised about this. Ryan Williams, Nick Anderson. I'll say this about Nick Anderson. I don't think he should be on here. I definitely would consider a guy like Marion Brown. If he's healthy, he could be on there. All right, looking at the tight end position, Max Clark, that's fine. Francis Mauioga, good dude. Francis Mauioga is going to be the best offensive tackle in next year's draft. He's a top 5 pick. He's a top 5 pick. Make no mistake about that. Caden Green. I'm surprised Caden Green didn't lead for the draft this year. I was definitely surprised. I think that him and Connor Tollison is going to form as one of the best interior combos in the nation. I think both of them are first-round draft picks. Desmond Reed. Des Reed's going to – I'll say this. Y'all quit hating on my boy Terry Bussey. Terry Bussey is a very big-time guy that you need to be paying attention to. Terry Bussey may be one of the best players in college football this time next year. And I'm telling you, I am very high on Terry Bussey for a reason. It's because of what he brings to the table. The guy can do just about everything. He can return. He can carry the load in the run game. You can get him on punt return, and he can break off one. You get him on kickoff, he can break off one. The dude can fly. He can do just about anything. And I'm telling you, I know everybody's going to talk about Desmond Reed. Everybody's going to talk about that. You better watch out for Terry Bussey this time next year. Looking at the defense, dude, Clemson's defense is scary. You get T.J. Parker. You get Peter Woods. You're talking about guys like that, and you're talking about some dogs. L.T. Overton, Dylan Stewart, to me, is going to be one of the best edge rushers at this point. Not this year, but next year. If they can keep him healthy, or if they can keep him happy in Columbia, South Carolina, it's going to be fun for the next couple of years. Suntarian Perkins is going to be one of the most valuable assets to this Ole Miss defense in a while. Leonard Moore, you get him back. Last year's freshman defensive player of the year, All-American as well. Caleb Downs, definitely a top 5 pick going into next year. And there you go. Barian Brown as a returner. Barian Brown could potentially do that. Again, though, Terry Bussey is one. Terry Bussey is going to get real. Guys, that's going to end it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's my birthday tomorrow. We'll see if I'm going to do a live show right after the Super Bowl. But until then, guys, thank you once again for joining. And I'll see you next time as we dive more inside the